motion. I earlier recognized Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Trickey, and Joy had their hands up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a substitute motion. I'd like to split the ballot. Instead of having one vote, I'd like to have two votes of the $143 million, $57 million for the parks, and $86 million for the rec center, to have two votes.
Okay, so that'd be in concept, because obviously we could not approve a budget resolution, ballot language, all of those details that have to go to bond council and come back. But talking sort of a big picture conceptually to start the process with that bifurcation. Is that I'm putting words in your mouth, obviously, but okay, well, we'll see if that, and it would be a substitute motion because that would wipe out, for using fancy terms, the early one, I guess. So is there a second to that? Councilmember Tidswell. Okay, Councilmember Boyette and Tidswell, did you want to speak to your substitute motion?
Yes, sir, I do. Almost 4 years ago, I sat in the audience, just like you're doing now, and I saw a presentation on the rec center, and I think it was like $35 million, and everybody went, $35 million. Well, now it's $86 million. But tonight, as well as all the people I talked to, especially tonight, almost 90% of the people I've been track of, they talked about one thing: parks and trails. We need parks and trails. I think we have to have parks and trails. That's a need. We want a rec center. So my thought is to let the public, I want this to go to a vote. I want to vote for both of these myself, but I think it'd be nice if the public had a choice. That was some of the words that were used. Give voters a choice. This way they do have a choice. One for parks and trails, which we need, and a rec center that we want.
Okay, Councilmember Tidswell, you have the second?
Yeah. I guess a question for Andy or Mike. He's talking about a plan B. If this thing fails, what is the cumulative effect on what we have right now as a community? What does that cumulative effect look like for the department and for our facilities that we currently have? If this thing goes under or fails?
Councilmember Tidswell, what we currently have would not change. I mean, currently we fully fund the Parks Department, the parks that we currently have, the recreation programs that we currently have. It doesn't move this department forward. It doesn't move the city forward, but we would have the parks that we currently have.
And they'd be operation, they were maintained, everything would be fine with those parks?
Yes, you've already passed that as a budget, so yes, we currently have that, yes.
Okay, all right, fair enough, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's the motion before us. Discussion on the substitute motion. Councilmember Owen.
I just want to express my support for this motion. I think it's well considered. I think it's consistent with the idea of giving voters a choice. I don't think it affects, quite frankly, any of the campaign efforts, which can, urge voters to vote for both. And I think the truth of the matter is, the intense amount of community work is incredible and the community support is great. But among voters, I think this is a jump ball. I think that there are people who really want these things and can't afford them. And there are people who are split as to whether or not we need them. And I think this really actually does create a choice scenario in which the public can consider investments in parks and investments in a rec center. I think it makes just good common sense to separate these issues. They are separate. And I support it and I'm going to vote for it.
Okay. For discussion on substitute motion, Councilmember Gulick. Oh, I'm sorry. I recognize Councilmember Trickey and Joy before.
But not on this one.
But not on this. So Councilmember Gulick.
We did hear from members of our community about who are bringing forward a campaign. We may have not had a lot of time to consider what has just been brought forward, but I usually think of these as being as package deals, and so I'd be interested in folks from the campaign to comment on this proposed, on the substitute motion, what that would mean to a campaign.
Councilmember Gulick, rather than just opening it up for more public comment, can we ask you to address your question to an individual or group? Or
Yes, I guess it would be to Julie Seedhouse and Brian Brown.
Hi.
So yes, you did hear the substitute motion from Councilmember Boyette to splitting the rec center off from the rest of the parks and trails bond. Care to comment on what that might mean for a campaign and for investments from other what you've been hearing from other folks that made commitments?
From what I've been hearing, and I'll be interested to hear what Brian says too, I think it would kill them both. I think the people that we've talked to who have committed to this and have agreed to give their own money to the project believe fully in the full project.
Councilmember, I appreciate your question. A lot of these questions tonight are hypothetical. What if this, that, and the other, and we could do that all night long. So whether this is a fair question or not, it's a question. I don't know the right answer. I don't know the exact answer, but I echo what Julie says. Councilman Boyette, to your point about wants and needs, maybe it was understated the need for a recreation community center. Maybe that's, I mean, as far as wants and needs. And again, those are subjective words too, and it depends on who you ask and how, what lens you're looking through, whether it's on a community-wide life improvement basis, whether it's on health and activity, whether it's on economic development. What is the want? What is the need? I think these are both very important. And I can't speak for anybody that's pledged anything to the campaign directly or to the actual project about their wants or needs or what is most important. But I do know that on a general basis, the people I've been in contact with and with discussions, this is an entire package put together for the community. So would it hurt it? If you ask me directly, do I know for sure? I don't know for sure, but will I say it would hurt it? Yes, it would.
And if I could just add, I think the focus tonight has, yes, been on parks and trails because you guys have heard from many of us over and over and over again on this rec center. So, you know, it's not a new addition to the conversation, but it is a little bit. And we just wanted to make sure that you all could see our support across the board for all of the projects. And I know that just from my initial conversations with potential donors, the private money that we will raise will be more enthusiastically given with the idea of the rec center being part of it. That's, you know, on a corporate level with business leaders, that's what they are going to see the most return on investment for their dollars, for their businesses.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Councilmember Joy, Councilmember Shaw, again, this is a substitute motion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I won't support the motion. I guess it really comes down to a single thing. Whether or not the 11 of us actually believe in community. Do we trust it? Do we believe in it? Is it real? Does it present us to come up here and testify to us? Is it community? I think there's a lack of trust in community. Because if all of these people who represent more than just the person in that chair, if they think this is important, why are we saying no to community? Do we lack trust in community? Do we think these people and the people they represent don't know what they think? I don't know. I won't support the substitute motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I strongly urge us not to support this substitute motion. Two things I want to say. One is that we very carefully created a package that touched all parts of the city and all wards. The rec center is Ward 3's piece of this, that with that being removed, there really is nothing for Ward 3 in the parks package. That's one issue. The second issue is, I mentioned that it's been 24 years since we voted on this, 1999. At that time, there were two questions on the ballot. One was for a pool in the Heights. One was for general parks and trails funding. One passed, one failed. I think that's a best case scenario that we would see in separating these, and I think more than likely we would see them both fail.
Thank you very much. Councilmember, other hands on this motion before we move to a vote on substitute motion? We'll try to move to the vote quickly. Councilmember Bernice?
Thank you, Mayor. I like the idea of splitting them too as well. I think that, again, this will have to come back to us with resolutions. And at that time, we can really have the resolution honed down as far as letting the people know what they're voting on and where the money is coming from. So, and that parks, the 56 million for the parks would be, they can list the parks in that. It'll be all those parks. And of course, the rec center will be the one item, the rec center. So they'll know that. And if people wanted, if that $12 million is being donated to go to the rec center, I guess that's where it impacts that directly to the rec center, unless people are donating it to some of the other parks. So I think this is a good way forward, and I think I think it'll give us a little bit more time to make sure we have time before we have to get this developed, so the staff should be able to get these two resolutions back to us in time for a business session.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the substitute motion? I see other hands that wanted to comment. Is this Councilmember Tricky and Councilmember Purington?
3 years ago, when I was first elected, I'd been involved in the conversations that were going around about, we need to invest in the future. We need to invest in parks and trails and a rec center. One of the things that has stuck with me about the rec center is that it is not a want. It is a need. It is the only way we can do recreation 12 months out of the year. Yes, you can go skiing, but what if you're a swimmer? Yes, you can throw snowballs, but what if you're a basketball player? A rec center is a very important step towards moving us to a place where we can have 12-month recreation. In fact, just the other day, somebody came up to me and said, hey, how about a skateboard? We need a 12-month skateboard. That will really help, and then we can tie some stuff to it, to help those kids, bring them in and on and on and on. So I do not consider it a want. I consider it a need, along with everything else at here. The second thing that I really want to comment on here is that 3 years ago, I made the comment that there really is not a community movement around these issues. We have not seen anyone step up, take leadership, and really make anything happen other than the South Billings TIF district, which was basically sitting there and saying, okay, we've got this money, what can we do with it? In the last 6 months, I'm amazed by what I saw here tonight and the things that have been brought to the table in the last month. Absolutely amazed. The community has come together and said, let's do this thing. Let's make it happen. I don't see the point in breaking it apart. Essentially, you're throwing months of conversations and negotiations and kicking back and forth by the community out the frickin' door. And you're saying to the community, screw you, we know better than you do. Let's let the people vote on one or the other. No, let the people vote on what the community came together and said, this is what we want to do in order to move forward. I'm not going to support this, obviously.
Thank you. Councilmember Purington.
Thank you. So whenever we talk about trusting the community by putting this out there for a vote before all of our taxpayers, the thing that I have to remember as a council member is that each of us was elected to represent the voice of the community, the voters, the taxpayers, and to deal with their best interests. And at this time, and I've said it many times before, even when we were talking about infrastructure needs, and I'm big on infrastructure, is that we need to look at what our community has to pay. And right now, from the letters that we've been receiving, our taxpayers are hurting. They've got tax fatigue right now. And whether it's $153 a year or it's going to be $400 a year for some of these people, because some of these folks are folks of means. They could afford it, but there's other things that are probably more of a priority for them. So I like the idea of splitting this. I think we need to develop our parks. I think we need to finish our parks that we have. We have some wonderful parks, but they're not finished. And what was it, 40 years on Castle Rock? And it's not finished. It is not finished. Poly Vista, not finished. I don't know how long it's been around, ever since I've been here, I think. So there's so many parks that need to be finished. There's probably some trails that need to be finished as well. I'm not going to diss the trails because I think, there is an appetite for those. And I think the South Rec Center is an awesome idea. But I just am concerned about the people that have to pay for these. So without a campaign of saying, you need to vote for this, I say, let's split it up. Let's split it up. See what their appetite is. And see how much they can afford. See what they're willing to pay. So I will support this, and I thank you, Councilmember Boyette, for bringing it up.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll. Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of interested in what Power Montana might have to say about this idea.
They have put up $2 million, and for $2 million, I'm willing to listen. So, Kim.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for just 1
Now
minute.
for 1.9, I don't know, but for 2.
I have to agree, and I apologize if I say your name incorrectly, with Councilman Shariki. Shariki, thank you. Over the past 6+ months, I've had the opportunity to sit with a number of individuals in the community on this proposal. I've been involved in different ways for probably 6 to 8 months, and myself representing the business community, but I have to agree, what I have seen in representation for the $142 million single ballot item represents the young, the elderly, the business, represents folks on council, across the community, even trails, all over, is fully supportive of this. And I guess it concerns me that this is the product of months and months of work to put together this proposal with gaining input from all over the community. And we're going to change that tonight. So an hour donation is certainly representing a single ballot item of $142 million, because that is what our community needs. So I just encourage us to leave the proposal as it stands with a single ballot of yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council will proceed to a vote. So we'll have a show of hands on the substitute motion, and the substitute motion is to reject the current proposal and move back to a conceptual model that would separate those two votes. Of course, we'd have to work out all those details if the motion passes. But so those in favor of Councilmember Boyette's substitute motion, if in favor, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Council members Neese, Owen, Tidswell, and Purington. If voting in opposition, and Boyette, I guess. If voting in opposition, raise your hand. Council members Shaw, Gulick, Joy, Cole, Tricky, and Neese. So motion and Rupsis. I'm sorry, I said Neese. So motion fails.